I was 6 months pregnant when my billionaire husband threw me out in the rain like trash. His mistress smiled from our bedroom window. They thought I was broken. They thought I had nothing. But what they didn't know, I had something worth more than all his money combined. Before I tell you how I made them both regret everything, hit that subscribe button and turn on notifications. You won't believe where this story goes, trust me. You'll want to stick around until the end because the revenge? Chef's kiss. Now let me take you back to where it all started. My name is Denise Thompson, and 5 years ago I was a middle school English teacher in Philadelphia. I loved my job. Those kids kept me grounded, kept me real. I met Christopher Wallace at a charity book drive I organized at my school. He walked in wearing a casual sweater and jeans, carrying boxes of books like it was nothing. I had no idea he was the Christopher Wallace, the tech entrepreneur who'd just sold his startup for millions. He was charming, funny, and when he asked me to dinner, I said yes, without hesitation. 6 months later, he proposed at my school, right in front of my students. They went wild. It was perfect. We got married that summer in a beautiful ceremony, and I thought I was living a fairy tale. Then his company went public, and overnight, Christopher became a billionaire. Our lives changed completely. We moved into a mansion, had staff, got invited to galas and fancy parties. I kept teaching, though. That was my condition. I needed to stay connected to who I was. Christopher said he loved that about me. He said I kept him humble. For the first 2 years, we were happy. Really happy. Then I got pregnant, and everything seemed even more perfect. We painted the nursery together, argued over baby names, dreamed about our future. The first 5 months of my pregnancy were the best months of my life. I should have known it was too good to last. That's when Lauren Mitchell entered our lives. Christopher hired her as an executive consultant for his company. She was blonde, polished, came from old money, went to all the right schools. At first, I didn't think much of it. Christopher had lots of employees. But then she started showing up everywhere. Family dinners, weekend trips. She'd laugh at his jokes just a little too loud, touch his arm just a little too long. When I mentioned it to Christopher, he looked at me like I'd lost my mind. "You're being insecure," he said. "Lauren's helping me expand the business." That's it. He made me feel crazy for even bringing it up. The late nights started, missed doctor's appointments. He'd come home smelling like perfume that wasn't mine, and when I'd ask about it, he'd accuse me of being paranoid. "It's the pregnancy hormones," he'd say. "You're not thinking clearly. That's what gaslighting does to you. It makes you question everything you know to be true." His mother Helen didn't help. She'd make these little comments about how I needed to keep myself up, even though I was 6 months pregnant. She'd suggest that maybe I was being too demanding of Christopher's time, that successful men need space to work. I felt so alone. My best friend, Trina, kept telling me to trust my gut, but I kept pushing those feelings down. I loved him. I wanted to believe him. Then one Tuesday afternoon, I found a diamond earring in our bed, not mine. I held that earring in my hand for 20 minutes, just staring at it. When Christopher came home, I showed it to him calmly. I didn't yell. I didn't cry. I just asked him to explain. And you know what he did? He didn't even deny it. He looked relieved, like he'd been waiting for this moment. "I never should have married you, Denise," he said, cold as ice. "You don't fit in my world." "You never did." Before I could respond, I heard footsteps on the stairs. Lauren appeared at the top, wearing my robe. My robe. She had this smirk on her face like she'd won some prize. Turns out she'd been staying at our house the whole week I was in Atlanta taking care of my sick mother. They'd been playing house in my home while I was gone. "I want a divorce," Christopher said flatly, "and I need you out, tonight." I looked at this man, the father of my unborn child, and I didn't recognize him. Outside, rain was pouring down. I was 6 months pregnant, and he wanted me gone immediately. I begged him, not for our marriage, that was dead, but for our baby, for some decency, some time to figure things out. "That baby doesn't change anything," he said, and those words cut deeper than any knife could. "Lauren's my future now," "You're my past." His mother stood in the hallway watching this entire scene unfold. She didn't say a word, didn't defend me, didn't tell her son he was being cruel. She just watched as security escorted me out with one suitcase for 3 years of marriage. I stood in the rain, water soaking through my clothes, my hand on my belly, watching Lauren wave at me from my bedroom window. That image is burned into my brain forever. I felt so small, so worthless, so completely destroyed. Trina picked me up and took me to her tiny apartment. I cried for 3 days straight. I couldn't eat, could barely breathe. The pain wasn't just emotional, it was physical. My chest hurt, my whole body hurt. Christopher's lawyers sent divorce papers within a week. He was offering minimal child support and nothing else. I was so broken, so defeated, that I just signed everything. I gave up rights to marital assets, to the house, to everything. I just wanted it to be over. Meanwhile, Christopher and Lauren went public with their relationship on social media. The comments were vicious. People called me a gold digger who got what I deserved. They said he'd upgraded, that I'd been punching above my weight anyway. Every comment was another punch to the gut. I moved through those next weeks like a zombie. Teaching was the only thing that kept me going. My students noticed I was sad. They started leaving little notes on my desk. "Lee, you're the best teacher ever. Hope you feel better, Ms. Thompson." One of my students, Diamond, whose mother had abandoned her, stayed after class one day. She looked at me with these wise eyes and said, "You're stronger than you think, Ms. Thompson." I can tell. That 14-year-old girl gave me more hope than any adult had. One night, unpacking that single suitcase for probably the 10th time, I found something strange. A flash drive tucked into the torn lining. I didn't remember packing it, didn't even remember owning it. Curiosity got the best of me, so I plugged it into Trina's laptop. What I found changed everything: financial documents, corporate records, emails. Someone had sent me Christopher's entire digital paper trail months ago from an anonymous email account. I'd never even opened the email because I trusted my husband. As I started reading, my hands began to shake. Tax evasion, fraud, embezzlement. But what really caught my attention was a patent filing for something called Wallace Tech Innovation, the algorithm that made Christopher his billions. The original inventor listed was Gerald Murphy, deceased. The patent was filed just 3 weeks after Gerald died in a car accident. I kept digging through the files, and the story became clear. Christopher hadn't invented anything. He'd stolen everything from his former business partner and then stolen the patent after Gerald died. I couldn't sleep that night. I read every single document, found emails where Christopher discussed handling the Gerald problem, found financial transfers to offshore accounts, found communications about making sure Gerald's widow couldn't afford to fight back legally. Gerald Murphy's widow was named Beverly. She was a black woman who'd been left with nothing while Christopher built an empire on her dead husband's genius. I found Beverly's contact information in some old emails and reached out. We met at a coffee shop 3 days later. She was working 2 jobs, looked exhausted, and when I told her what I'd found, she started crying right there in public. Gerald trusted Christopher like a brother, she told me. They started that company together in our garage. After Gerald died, Christopher said he'd take care of us. Instead, he took everything and left us with nothing. I tried to fight, but his lawyers buried me in paperwork I couldn't afford to respond to. Beverly showed me Gerald's original sketches and patent applications. Everything matched what Christopher later claimed as his own invention. We had him, but I needed more evidence and I needed professionals to help me. I used part of my teaching salary to consult with Kevin Banks, a lawyer friend from college. When Kevin saw what I had, his eyes went wide. "Denise, this isn't just divorce court territory, this is federal crime territory. This could bring down his entire empire. We needed more evidence, though. Hard copies, bank statements, more communications, and I knew exactly where to find them. Christopher's home office. I still had keys to the house, and security had never changed the codes. It was risky, especially 7 months pregnant, but I had to do it. I planned it carefully. Christopher and Lauren were attending a charity gala on a Saturday night. I knew they'd be gone for hours. At 2 in the morning, I let myself into my former home. Walking through those halls felt surreal. Everything looked the same but felt completely different. My hands shook as I made my way to Christopher's office. I downloaded everything I could find onto multiple flash drives: bank statements, emails, contracts, offshore account information. The evidence was damning. He hadn't just stolen from Gerald. He'd been defrauding investors, evading taxes, running shell corporations. This man was a criminal. I heard a car door slam and my heart stopped. They were home early. I grabbed the flash drives and hid in the office closet, 7 months pregnant, trying not to breathe too loud. Christopher and Lauren came into the office, arguing about money. "When are you making me co-owner like you promised?" Lauren demanded. Christopher laughed coldly. "After the divorce is final, sweetheart?" That prenup with Denise was ironclad, but I need to make sure everything's protected first. So Lauren was just another pawn in his game. Even she didn't know who she was really dealing with. They left the room, and I escaped through the back door. My heart was pounding so hard I thought I might go into labor right there, but I'd done it. I had everything I needed. Kevin brought in Monique Jackson, a prosecutor known for taking down white-collar criminals. When Monique saw the evidence, she smiled like a shark. "We've got him," she said simply. We brought Beverly in officially. Federal investigators got involved, the SEC, the IRS, everyone. The case built for weeks while I stayed quiet and played the role of the pathetic, abandoned wife publicly. Then I went into labor. 8 hours of it, and Christopher didn't show up. He sent a text that just said, "Lawyer will contact you about custody arrangements." Trina was in the delivery room holding my hand, and my mother flew in from Atlanta. When they placed my daughter on my chest, I named her Gabriel. It means, "God is my strength." I looked at her tiny face and made a promise. No one would ever make her feel small. No one would ever treat her the way her father treated me. I used my maternity leave to finalize everything. Kevin connected me with Angela Williams, an investigative journalist who'd been tracking Christopher's suspicious business dealings for years. "I always knew something was off about his rise," she told me. "We planned to release the story simultaneously with the federal charges, create maximum impact." I recorded a video testimony explaining everything. We built an airtight case that Christopher's expensive lawyers couldn't wiggle out of. 3 months after Gabrielle was born, Angela's article dropped. "The Billionaire Built on Lies: How Christopher Wallace Stole an Empire." It went viral within hours. Every major news outlet picked it up. The article detailed everything: the stolen patents, the fraud, the tax evasion, Gerald's story, Beverly's suffering. Federal warrants were issued that same day. I'll never forget watching the news footage of FBI agents raiding Christopher's office. Lauren was there when it happened. They questioned her too, though she wasn't charged with anything. She just didn't know what her boyfriend really was. Christopher's assets were frozen immediately. His company's stock crashed 87% in a single day. The board of directors voted to remove him as CEO. Criminal charges were filed for fraud, tax evasion, and intellectual property theft. Everything he'd built came crashing down in 72 hours. It was beautiful. Then Christopher showed up at Trina's apartment. It was midnight, and he was banging on the door like a madman. I answered with Gabrielle on my hip. I barely recognized him. He was unshaven, wearing wrinkled clothes, eyes wild and desperate. "You did this," he said, his voice breaking. "You destroyed me. You ruined everything." I looked at this man who'd thrown me out in the rain, who'd abandoned his child, who'd made me feel worthless, and I felt nothing but peace. "No, Christopher," I said calmly. "You ruined yourself. You built your entire life on lies and theft. I just made sure you couldn't ruin anyone else." He started crying right there on the doorstep, actually crying. "I loved you, Denise. I lost everything. The audacity of this man." "You threw away everything," I corrected him. "There's a difference. You chose Lauren. You chose greed. You chose to steal from a dead man's family. Those were your choices. Now you get to live with the consequences." I closed the door in his face. Christopher was sentenced to 12 years in federal prison. He was ordered to pay $340 million in restitution to Gerald's estate, to defrauded investors, and to the government. Beverly finally got justice for Gerald. She used her compensation to open a scholarship fund in his name for aspiring Black inventors and engineers. Lauren released a statement saying she'd been deceived and manipulated, which made me laugh. She knew exactly what she was doing. Helen Wallace lost her precious social standing overnight. She still refuses to acknowledge any wrongdoing, still insists her son was framed. As for me, I used my portion of the recovered assets to start a nonprofit called Second Chances Foundation. We help women leaving bad marriages, provide legal assistance, temporary housing, job training, childcare. Everything I wish I'd had during those dark days. I went back to teaching and eventually became principal of my school. Gabrielle is 3 years old now, smart as a whip, and surrounded by love. She'll never know a father who didn't want her, but she'll know a mother who'd burn the world down to protect her. I'm even dating again, taking it slow, but I'm open to love. Real love this time. The kind built on respect and honesty. I found happiness in the life I rebuilt from ashes. And you know what I learned through all of this? Revenge isn't about destruction. It's about justice. It's about standing up when they think you'll stay down. Christopher didn't throw me out because I wasn't good enough. He threw me out because he was never good enough for me. He was a fraud in every sense of the word, and deep down he knew I deserved better. That baby girl he abandoned? She's got a mother who's a warrior, who turned her pain into purpose, who fought back when the world expected her to disappear quietly. That's the greatest revenge of all, not making them hurt, making them watch you thrive. If this story inspired you, gave you chills, or made you believe in karma, smash that like button. Drop a comment telling me what you would have done in my situation, and subscribe because I've got more stories that'll remind you they might knock you down, but your comeback? That's your story to write. Now go check out the next video on your screen, you're gonna love it. Until next time, remember, never let anyone dim your light.